Let's get it.
Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode of TC Realty's Nonsense Podcast. I'm your host, Tom Chamberlain, along with my co-host, Kevin Hobart. Kevin, what's up?
I'm doing great. I'm the least dressed person in here. I didn't know it was dress-up day.
I got a sweatshirt on too.
I know. I feel underwhelmed.
But I don't have hose in my jeans.
I know. I always forget we're on camera now. So, I just threw on my Germany hat and walked on out.
Right. So we have a special guest with us today, coming right out of the new legislative session, Peyton Griffee. Peyton, how you doing, bud?
Doing good. Good to see you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so it's been a little while since we've talked politics or anything else. Mm-hmm. So kind of go over what you thought the nuts and bolts was of this past session, because it was a quick session.
It was. Well, I appreciate it. And again, thanks for having me on, Tom. So a couple things. It was a short session, and I've been trying to kind of get that message out. It's different than what when I came in at the tail end of the last session. Mm-hmm. In the short session, the 30-day session, it runs from we had a week in January, then you're off back home for about 3 weeks, mm-hmm. and then you basically run February and the first 2 weeks of March. Right. So that's it. And to pass, there was like 1,000 bills filed. So it's very short. It's very quick. Mondays we didn't even meet this year. So it was Tuesday through Friday mornings. Is mm-hmm. basically what it came down to. Usually gaveling at about 2 o'clock. So that was kind of from a big picture. It's very quick, it's very short, and there's no budget. Right. So that's something really important that I've been trying to drive home for people is, a lot of road questions this time of year, which is the most critical and the biggest question I get all the time is what are we going to do about roads?
Infrastructure.
Right, infrastructure. It's a 2-year road budget. So everything we passed last year with roads mm-hmm. stayed the same this year, and then we will be back in for that fight this coming January.
And it will be a longer session.
That's right, mm-hmm. 60 days. Mm-hmm. So this time there really wasn't a lot of, there's not a lot of money going out, which is a lot of times what people most care about. So what did we do? I think we focused on, I like to say, common sense. Mm-hmm. I think that's been a theme here for the last little bit. But the biggest thing was lowering the income tax.
Yes.
So a lot of people have heard something that I was really passionate about on the campaign trail is lowering our state income tax. We are getting to zero. That's mm-hmm. the goal. We were at 6%, 6-7% a couple years ago. We're now down to 4%. We just lowered it to 3.5%. So
when do you anticipate it being zero?
It's a good question. They have
because the dollars have to make sense for you all to be able to.
That's exactly right. So everybody up there is committed. Everybody in the majority party is committed to getting it to 0%. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
When you say majority party, you mean the Republican Party?
That's right. The Republican Party. That's right. We'll get a little partisan here.
Before we get much further, did we remind everybody who he represents, just in case there's people that doesn't know that? Your district?
Yes, thank you, Kevin. I'm in the 26th district, which is about half of Bullitt County.
Okay.
And then I do have 3 precincts in Hardin County. So I've got Fort Knox, West Point, that area as well. So thank you very much.
No, yeah, that's fine.
So I do think we will get to zero.
Yes.
It's just doing it the smart way. Because what happened was, and we have Chairman Petrie is really one of the driving forces behind this, and he's brilliant when it comes to numbers. And it's got to make financial sense to keep lowering, because what happened in a state and other ways that we've looked at doing it, in like Kansas, they went to zero overnight. They said, we're going to get rid of our income tax, and it bankrupted the state.
Well,
and
sure.
Then they're back a year later saying, we got to raise everybody's taxes, mm-hmm. and that is not what we want. Some follow-on legislation that we actually passed this year, the original bill, we would come back, we would look at it, and you could lower by 0.5%.
Yeah.
We actually passed some legislation this year that will allow us to do even smaller cuts where we can keep cutting. So I feel very comfortable that this coming January we're going to be able to go to 3%. Mm-hmm. I think the numbers make sense. That jump from 3% to 2% and there in the middle is where it starts to get a little bit trickier. Mm-hmm. We're going to be able to do things like if we need to 1 year go to 2.8%, the next year go to 2.7%, we're going to be able to do that. And I was one when you're looking at it's like we got to get to zero, which I agree with. And I don't believe in a state income tax, but we've had it for so long. Well, you got to do it in the smart way.
There's too many other states around us that are really driving new businesses to their state because of the zero.
Yeah.
Tennessee Tennessee's getting
That's
a
right.
ton of extra businesses and corporations down there because of that.
That's right. That's right.
But you have to get – it's a fine line because you have to go line by line in the budget and say, okay, we can cut this, we can trim this, we can trim this. Now we've saved enough money where we can take it down 0.5%.
That's right. That's right. And Tennessee is a great example. They're at 0%. We do lose. There's no doubt we lose businesses that I do a lot with the military community and trying to keep veterans here. I represent Fort Knox. I'm in the Army Reserve. Very important to me. Fort Campbell, our other installation right down there on the border.
On Hopkinsville.
A big driving factor, if you want to live on the Tennessee side or Kentucky side, is that state income tax.
Absolutely.
Now, one thing that Tennessee has done differently that a lot of times, people move to Tennessee and then they'll check out their sales tax is much higher than what we've got. And so we also don't want to just jump to that overnight. So I think we're doing it in the best way you can. People say all the time.
The fiscally responsible way.
That's right. That's right. And people say all the time, Kentucky's last to adopt anything. Kentucky's the last to do this. Sometimes that's true, and we could speed things up. But other times, it's good to have seen how other states do things and adopt those things like we are now.
What
and I
works
think we're doing
and what don't work.
That's right. That's right. So
Because you don't want to be a Kansas, you want to be more like a Tennessee.
that's right. So I think we're really moving in that direction. Chairman Petrie is very much does this make sense? How are we going to fund this? That's the question you get when you file a bill from him. Is how are you going to fund it? How are you going to pay for it? Which I think is a great question to ask.
Well, yeah.
And a question that unfortunately was not asked in the state for a long time.
Long time. And that's why we got the situation we were in.
That's right. And so we're in a financially healthy place. Obviously we've had some severe disasters, things like that.
Tornadoes, flooding. Right. It's been crazy the last 5 years.
And you got to pay for it.
Yep.
So, I think looking to the budget session, obviously roads is going to be a big priority, but, he's big, Chairman Petrie's big on, one-time payments. Is this something we can pay for? And it's not a reoccurring, what government does a lot is, we'll give you $1 million and we'll keep giving you that $1 million down the road. We can't have that anymore. So I think
you can't have that in the state government or the federal government.
That's right.
And that's the problem we're in now is, both of them have just overspent, and there was never anybody overseeing anything.
That's right. And, so I think that's what we've done a really good job as in the Republican caucus in both the Senate and the House is coming together on that, doing the fiscally responsible thing. We're funding the state. We're able to cut income tax. And so I think the budget year will be very successful for us. I think we had a very successful year this year. We lowering that on the first day was very exciting. It was, good to show people back home, hey, we're really doing what we said we were going to do, which doesn't happen all the time.
No, it does not. But it's going to be a really good year when you don't hear anything out of Frankfort.
Yeah.
When there's not a bunch of backlash and it's just posted everywhere. When you don't hear anything about the session, you know it's a good session.
Yeah.
No news, good news.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly right. So I've talked to a lot of people that were happy with that. I think we'll continue to make those strives. So most of the rest of the session, we passed a lot of legislation, a lot of good legislation. Your big ticket was definitely the income tax.
Oh, absolutely. As it should be every year.
Yeah, I agree.
Until it gets to the point that it needs to be gone away.
I agree. So for me personally, this session, I tell you, one thing I really focused on being new. And I got the tail end of that budget session last year, but I was trying to figure out even where to park up there. It was so much thrown at you at once, right? I really wanted to learn the process, how things work, how you even all that. So I felt like I had a really successful for the 26th district that set me up for success for next year. I did pass a bill through the House, which was exciting. Going through the committee process.
Sure.
It was a bill I worked on with the Attorney General's office and specifically the Auditor's office, but the Attorney General, Auditor, Agriculture Commissioner, Treasurer, and Secretary of State. So I got to be in that process. Actually testified with the Auditor Ball, who is a great auditor for the state and was a great treasurer before.
Yes, absolutely.
So that was a big highlight for me. And then seeing how it worked. One thing I love about the state legislature that I think Congress would never go back to this. But if you look, Congress functioned pretty well when we did it like this too, is it is a part-time legislature. So on Mondays, I was back at the law firm. I was with Hayden practicing law. you're keeping up with your other job. It's a
Sure.
part-time legislature.
Well, and it pays like a part-time.
It does. It does. It absolutely does.
You don't take it for the money.
Right. No, that's exactly right. And I do think there is something to be said for that in that you're not a career politician when you're up there because you've got to,
You can't pay your bills and want to
no,
pay you.
I got to make payroll.
Yeah.
I'm doing all these things at the same time. And I think Congress at the federal level sometimes loses sight of that.
Yeah.
So, we've got to balance our budget in the state government.
You're doing everything the federal government's doing,
Right. So,
but on a part-time basis.
right. So it was good to see that, good to kind of feel that. I think we learned some lessons going forward with managing the practice. I got to give a shout out to Hayden. Was just
He holds the fort down while
tremendous.
you're gone.
Yeah, and that is not an easy gig at all. And to be by yourself. I was running back on Mondays, getting back in on Friday afternoons. I was all over the place. Then you got speaking event.
Yep.
It gets pretty busy. So really, really appreciate him. And but it was, I think, a very successful session. I think if you're there was something to like if you were a Republican, if you were a Democrat, you're an independent. Mm-hmm. I think there was a lot to like if you're a conservative Republican. That's what I am. I don't apologize for that. But
why would you?
Right. And there was a lot to like if you're a conservative, but there was, it's common sense. A lot of what we did is just common sense, straightforward. This is what needs to be done. And that wasn't the case in Frankfort for a long time. So
Common sense in politics. What a theory.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah,
I'm a firm believer if the federal government went back to part-time politicians, there wouldn't be so many millionaires.
Yeah.
That would be true. I got a question before he gets too far off this. So most people understand roads are funded at the state level, the federal level, the county level.
Right.
There's a billion different ways that it's all funded. What is your role in getting funding for roads in your particular district? Do you have a voice in that, or is it you just setting a budget for the state and then they decide what's distributed where? Where do you come into play when it's deciding I need this much money for roads in my district, or are you a part of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the state road fund, the road budget is what we pass every 2 years, and it breaks it down. You look in there, and it goes by county. It doesn't necessarily go by district, but you'll see Bullitt County, you'll see section of Highway 44, and our job is to advocate to people like the chairman, to say, hey, this is what we need on this road. One thing that we did really different in the last couple years, and we just did it again, so I'm glad you asked me about that. For years, but a lot of times, and this still happens for other counties, you've got multiple representatives in a county. Well, they might go in and advocate purely for, I want, my top 10 priorities are all in my district, and they're all this, and these are my priorities, and you're competing against other people in your county. Mm-hmm. What we have done, and I can't take credit for it, I know Representative Weber was a part of this the last couple of years. He was up there. What we have done, and we just did it about 2 weeks ago, Senator Nemes, myself, Representative Huff, Representative Callaway, so everybody that represents Bullitt County. Mm-hmm. Got together with the judge executive, and I like to call him the road guy, Keith Griffee, who if you've got a question about roads, just call my dad.
He'll figure it out.
He's all over the roads.
Right.
He is on it and understands that road budget better than anybody I've talked to. We get together in a room and we say, okay, what are our priorities?
As a county.
What is the
county
best?
Roads.
Because here's the thing. If we get money for, I don't have part of 44 East in my district. If we get money and they fix 44 East where it alleviates traffic in one part of Mount Washington, that's going to benefit Hillview. It's going to benefit Shepherdsville. It's going to benefit West 44.
Yeah.
And then, if we, for example, a big priority of mine is making sure that our area where the hospital is, U of L South, we worked really hard to get that $25 million last budget session. I got to be a part of that to get the Rural Cancer Center. Well, you need better infrastructure over there. Mm-hmm. But if we get that, and we get that infrastructure, which we have, but we continue and we get more money next year, that's going to benefit people in Tom's district. That's going to benefit, and of course, Senator Nemes and the judge executive. So that's something we've done differently is we're working as a unit to get the most road money for Bullitt County as possible instead of competing against each other.
Well, yeah, because you and Representative Huff could be competing for the same dollars.
That's right. And see, we share the way the districts, we share almost every city in. So, I don't have a ton of Mount Washington. I don't have all of Shepherdsville. I do have most of the north end and West 44. But it's going to benefit, this county, the main lifeblood through it are the same roads.
Oh, yeah.
So, if you're alleviating traffic in one area, it's going to benefit
everybody.
Yeah.
Trickle-down effect.
That's
so
right.
are
That's
you
right.
currently signed up to receive notifications, and do you constantly listen to Governor Beshear's new podcast?
I have not tuned in.
You have?
I hear plenty of, we're all in this together.
Yeah.
I got
Team
plenty
Kentucky.
of that 5 years ago. I tell this story. I don't know if I've told you this, Tom, but when I was working for Attorney General Cameron,
Which is like a hero of mine.
I
He's
love
a rock
him,
star.
and truly, I mean, just a great mentor and great friend. I took a job in his office in law school about 4 days before the COVID shutdown. So a big part of my job was, and in the early day, we were willing to work with the governor. We did a lot in the attorney general's office, but it got to a point where we had to sue. We had to, do on some of the mandates. And so my job as a lowly intern law student was to sit and watch every single press conference that the governor had and look for quotes, look for things that we could use in legal briefs against him.
Wow.
So-
what a job.
I would spend.
You did all that for free?
Because they
Yeah.
he did
so
it.
class credit.
Right.
Yeah.
That's when he had it like every day, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
When
5
he would-
o'clock.
5 o'clock.
Yeah.
And it was like today's COVID readings.
Yeah.
So
I cannot believe you're not tuning in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think he's gearing all this up because he's been on all the new networks and his podcast starts up? Is it a pre-run for a presidential campaign?
That would be my assumption.
Yeah.
We're I don't know his plans. I don't know the governor well. My assumption is, look, the Democratic Party, I think, just from a macro, and this isn't being just a hard partisan, but they are in search. They're kind of a rudderless ship right now
They
at the
are.
national level.
Well, they have AOC.
So yeah, you got AOC. You've got multiple directions that party can go. And I think you were going to have a massive primary.
I think there's going to be a million come out.
Oh, I mean,
every
it's gonna
governor
be-
is going to come
Yeah,
out.
and I would reason to bet he's one. I think he saw that old Gavin Newsom out there in California had a podcast. Mm-hmm. I think he saw me and Hayden had a podcast. I think he saw you had a podcast,
Yeah.
and he thought I gotta get in on this.
Right.
Is what he was thinking. But I have not. Long story short, I've not listened to it.
That disappoints me so bad.
Yeah.
I know you're a fan.
Yeah.
Well, let's play segments of it for him.
Yeah.
Since he used to watch it,
Yeah.
and we'll let him break it down.
Yeah, if y'all could have seen me in I had a little attorney general. I was in the office in the basement of the Capitol, just having to sit there and wanted to pull my hair out.
bet that was an awful job.
It was great job,
Yeah.
awesome job working for Daniel. But watching hours and hours of Andy Beshear say the same thing every day was not on my wasn't on my bingo card. when
I
signed up.
really hope Cameron does well.
Yeah.
I mean, we could really use him in that spot.
I agree. I haven't made a secret that I'm supporting him. I think there's been no other formal announcements yet. I've heard a couple other names. I like everybody that said they're going to run, but I think Daniel is perfect for that job. I signed my endorsement card today and sent it in to officially endorse him as an elected official. I think he. What I say about Daniel, and when I've gone to events to speak for him or introduce him, that is somebody that has had to go through the fire of public scrutiny at a
You
level that no other politicians really have. There's very few others that
And
have.
they marched on his front yard.
On his front yard, death threats.
Yeah.
We were in and out of that building for bomb threats all the time and did not waver at all and refused to waver. And so I think, to me, there's not a whole lot else you can ask for in a senator. Is this person going to do the right thing for Kentucky? I think when you see that and see what they've already been through, I mean, it's hard to get tested
He'll have
more than
some
that.
strong, hard to beat people come out in his corner.
Yeah. I think so. And
Some of the endorsements he'll get will be amazing.
and he's, to me, he's
The best ever.
That's right. Yeah, and he's that's right. And he's a unifying presence for the party. I mean,
Yes.
I really think that.
Yeah,
I think
I
if
agree.
whatever you think about Mitch McConnell, you probably like Daniel Cameron. Whether you hate him, you love him. I mean, if you're
Mitch is 143.
yeah.
I mean, his time has passed.
It was past 10 years ago, I think.
When I graduated high school, it passed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what I see in Daniel is if you were the biggest supporter of Senator McConnell, if you're the biggest supporter of Donald Trump, if you're a Republican that you don't like either of them or you like one of them, you're
gonna like Daniel.
I think you're going to like Daniel.
Yep,
so,
I agree.
I think he's got what it takes to get there.
It's super well spoken.
Yeah.
That helps.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, guys, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with the nonsense portion. Are you ready to turn your home ownership dreams into reality? At Mortgage Right, we make the mortgage process easy and stress-free. Mortgage Right NMLS 2239 is an equal housing lender licensed in Kentucky under NMLS 13526. Loan approvals are subject to credit and underwriting standards. Rates and terms are subject to change. Call us today at 502-741-4612 or visit us online at www.louisville.mortgageright.com. With Mortgage Right, you're not just getting a loan, you're getting it right. Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. Now we're going to get into the nonsense portion and see if Peyton can handle some of Kevin's questions here.
Is this now when we tell Peyton that the cameras were running and everybody he crushed during the break?
Yeah.
If he wants to leave some cash,
Yeah.
it doesn't get out.
Right.
Because all y'all, he just crushed everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, he let loose.
Especially Hayden.
It's
Wow.
it's all going to pop up in an ad in 2 years.
Right.
Yeah.
So one day he's going to run like for a higher office, and then we're going to leave it.
When Nima says he's done, Peyton's going to step in.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're going to go, remember this?
There's the commercial.
Yeah.
Remember when you're sitting on the couch? It goes to the highest bidder. So, did y'all get your taxes done? Everybody good?
Yeah.
Did I see that it got extended for the state of Kentucky? Did you see any of that?
I didn't.
I think so.
Oh, it did because of the floods.
Because of the flooding?
Yep.
Yeah.
I may take advantage of that because I'm still sitting on mine.
Are you?
Yeah, well, all I got to do is hit file, and I was going to wait till I got home. But I was like, you know what? If I can get an extension, I think I'm going to wait on that.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Why do you want to sit there and pay them?
I don't want to.
Right.
That's just it. So I was going to go home. Saw it pop up on my Google, and I was like, I'm going to ask Peyton when I see him.
Yeah.
I'm like, I think we're extended till like November 3rd.
Yeah, November 3rd, I think. Yep.
Oh, that's
Or
perfect.
7th, maybe, somewhere in
Yeah.
there.
Wait till November 2nd.
Yeah, right. I will.
Hope for another extension.
Right.
So both y'all are kind of involved in this side. So this is why I thought this would be a good topic to bring up. You're involved in the NIL, Bellarmine. You're in the legislative side of some of this stuff.
Yep.
And the big story out now is the Tennessee quarterback,
Yeah.
where he agreed to play for $2.5 million, which I still don't understand, which is another conversation for later. But NIL was supposed to be for these guys to advertise their own name, image, and likeness. How it become pay for play is beyond me.
Yeah.
It's the Wild West.
Right. So right after spring break or spring practice getting ready to start, he says, I now want $4 million.
Renegotiated.
He wanted to renegotiate it. So it's going to come to the forefront through Congress and through people want legislation to set a standard on this. I'm putting you on the spot. I know you don't know all the details on this, but what's your overview of what has to happen? Because Congress is going to get involved in this next year.
Yeah. So it's my understanding. So we have to, the state has to operate under the federal framework, and it is the Wild West. Congress has really not acted when it comes to NIL. So I'm not an expert on it, but I do know, sitting through some committee hearings, people like Senator Max Wise have really pushed for. We have very good pro NIL laws in this state, and what he says all the time is, we didn't create the system, but we want the state to be very forward-looking when it comes to NIL. And
so you can create your own laws on NIL? You don't have to follow any kind of mandate?
But if a federal law comes in, it's going to...
Once Congress sets it,
yeah, they're going to have
you don't
like
have
an
to follow.
overarching... Yeah, so it's my understanding, this is just going off...
Yeah, no, I know. You don't...
Yeah.
We don't prep you for these questions, so I know it's...
The NCAA has basically done nothing. Of course, they fought it and for years and years. Congress has really not acted and not put any sort of real strict guidance, and so that's why you're getting this Wild West. Supposedly, Congress is going to come in and say, okay, we know NIL is legal, but here's how, here's the framework for how it's actually supposed to work. Because what happened when they said, okay, you're good to go, is exactly what you're talking about, Kevin, which is like pay to play. And that was not the original intent. The original intent, the big example was video games and or even coming to do, coming to TC Realty and doing
Do a commercial.
doing a commercial, or like, hey,
to help supplement their little bit of stipend they get
Right,
from the
right,
university.
But somehow that got turned into the schools going, here's $2.5 million. Come
Well,
play
the
for us.
school's not giving them $2.5
I
million.
understand.
Right, it's
I
these
understand.
funds,
They're-
right.
Everybody
It's the collective agreement.
Right. Everybody else is like, well, we want nothing to do
And
with
that's
this.
where that's going to change, because there's that lawsuit, House versus California, right now.
Yeah.
That's in California. That if the judge approves that, that's going to require each school to give 22% of their TV revenue to athletes.
Yeah.
So if that happens, that means the school's kind of starting their own collective for that 22%, which on the larger schools is going to be millions and millions and millions of dollars.
Right.
I mean, think of what ESPN pays the SEC.
It's going up next year.
Yeah.
And I think the way to avoid that right there is for Congress to act and put together
I
some
don't know
sort
that they
of
will.
framework.
I mean,
yeah.
They're going to have to.
Well-
There's a kid from BYU basketball going to make $9 million next year.
BYU started their own academy
Right.
for these high school kids.
So it's got to change.
But is there more important things in this country for Congress to act on, or is it NIL?
I understand. I mean, that can be
I think
be
that's
anything.
why they're
But-
not really pushing it, because there's so many other problems that we have.
Maybe
Yeah.
Kevin's a little bit worried about how well the old Cardinals are doing down the street.
could
Well-
that might be.
This maybe, but this is, and I do like your coach. So we've talked about that.
Yeah.
I got a suggestion, and I mean dead serious. Why can't you have all Congress has to do is give each conference, say you can establish your own salary cap, whatever you want that to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then every conference can set their own standard, and that salary cap has to be for everybody. If you don't, you're going to turn into Major League Baseball.
It would have to be NCAA wide, not just conference, because then you would get kids leaving one conference that's
But
not
you
making
can't do
this-
that. You could, like Nevada.
They don't have to use it all, but you
Right, but you
have
can't have a
cap.
Well, okay, well I understand that. Not to exceed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
A
that would
certain-
work.
Yeah.
And then, because if not, you become baseball where every year it's going to be the Dodgers, which that's the
Yankees
dumbest.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the dumbest philosophy I've ever seen.
And if they did that, it would really take all the trouble out of the state legislation, because
Yeah.
they wouldn't have to worry about it no more. They could focus on something else.
I mean, y'all probably don't even want to deal with this on the state
Why would
level,
you?
right?
Right,
I
well, I mean,
understand
that's
you have
what-
bigger fish to fry.
Right.
But to be fair, Kentucky and Louisville is a. I mean, it makes money for the state. I mean, it's
Big
they're-
brands.
They're
But
state. They're state
it don't
institutions.
It don't make money for the state. The state pays them.
Right, but they're state institutions that they need functioning.
There's
Yeah.
no doubt when
Yeah.
UL and UK are doing well in sports, it's great
That's
for
what
the
I
state.
mean.
Yeah,
It-
for
it-
sure.
it's better.
It
It's better
brings
for
in
the.
more travel teams that
Right.
come in.
It's
and,
better for the city when Louisville, like this year, than it
Yeah,
was.
downtown was popping.
Right. So
Yeah.
that's what I mean by
Yeah.
that. So you have to address it, because if they don't, and every state has a UK or U of L on a lower level that rely on these schools.
Think of North Carolina, Duke and Wake Forest and North Carolina all right there
Right.
together.
And Wake Forest is a private institution.
Right.
You know, so they need to be able to still compete on a level. They will get run out
Yep. Oh,
if,
for
if
sure.
this is not fixed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'd like to see something done. It is, what I go back to is I think it was wrong the way we were doing it before. Lamar Jackson, everybody knew people wearing 8 in the stadium that they're wearing Lamar Jackson's number.
Yeah.
And he didn't get a dime.
He didn't get a dime
Right.
out of that.
So that's not right either. But I do agree where it's gotten to, and then you've got different states trying to do different stuff. Some simple guidance that's certainly not going to come from the NCAA, who just
Well, they
fails
got
to
asleep at
sued.
the wheel.
They
Yeah.
got sued, and now they're
and they
just
just
like,
said whatever.
Well, they've lost 3 lawsuits in a row.
Right.
well, and,
They're like,
Right.
we're gun shy right now.
and they should, because of the way these players are used. To your point, they even said that back in 1984, Patrick Ewing made $30 million, which ain't a lot today, but in 84, made $30 million for Georgetown.
Yeah.
And could not get, an extra package of crackers with his dinner.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, that had to change.
So I got to take all these classes on NIL, and every day I'll get an email. Will this change? Will this change?
Yeah.
Will this change? I'm like, golly, is another class?
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
going to have Bellarmine sued and out of business within
Oh,
a year.
probably.
That's a fact. He's going to be speaking on your behalf, on Bellarmine's behalf.
I'm hoping Bellarmine has strong legal representation at that university.
All he's going to do is be standing there going, "We do not wish to speak upon."
No, actually, I'm
at
on
this
top
time
of
we
my,
have no statement.
I'm on top of my game, because I'm getting other people from other sports in Bellarmine contacting me and saying, "How are you doing this?"
Yeah.
And the reason I know how to do this is because I've reached out to 502 Circle, the U of O collective, and they told me how to do it.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah. And they've got it down. And I think it would be if Congress would give just some bare minimum framework, I think it'd be better for people like you too,
Yeah,
Tom,
I mean,
because then stuff's not changing every week.
You know, because the ultimate goal is to not have any NCAA infractions for anybody. You don't want any player ineligible because of something was done wrong.
And they're going to run into a situation to where they're going to allow these kids a collective bargain, and they're going to start to unionize. If they're going to call them employees, I mean, if you're paying them to be employees, they have the right to then collective bargain.
Yeah.
And I think that's the fear for the House versus California lawsuit.
That's going to be a mess. If they're allowed to do that, then it creates a whole.
Well, and then also you have another thing is too. Another caveat to that is the school's allowed now to have a collective to distribute money from the TV funds. Okay, you have an AD that's an old baseball coach. Is he going to give more money to the baseball program versus the women's basketball or lacrosse?
What he cares about,
So you have a thing there, whereas now each sport has their own collective. So, I'm strictly just for women's basketball. So, every fund we raise goes to women's basketball. So, you're going to have an AD that says, well, I like this sport a little better than that sport.
Yeah.
So,
it's interesting. I mean, it is. You talk about Wild West.
Man, there's a lot of different little nooks and crannies on this deal.
Where you are in your seat for now, this won't come across your desk. Will you be in meetings for that, or
for NIL? Yeah, so we actually just voted on some NIL modernization law this last session. It came through the Senate and we voted on it, but I heard it in committee. I'm on the Economic Development Committee, so we hear and we'll continue. I mean, I think you'll see NIL legislation every single year until there's some sort of framework.
When you start seeing that for this upcoming session, please let me know. I'd like to come to Frankfort and sit in on those because the more knowledge I have, the better off I can do.
Yeah, and Senator Wise is just a great guy. That's the senator that's really kind of the driving force behind that. He's very sharp on NIL, much smarter than me on this stuff. And he's the one that's, he wants us to have a successful NIL framework. And he's the one that's been driving it down here. I do remember in that committee, though, I mean, there was a point that it was said, hey, Congress has not acted, so we don't really have so we've got to do this kind of patchwork until
something happens.
Until they figure it out.
And I don't see Congress acting on it next year or this session, next session. I think it's several years down the road before. I think it's going to have to hit rock bottom before they're actually going to step up.
Just be all over the place. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's college basketball players that could be second round picks or making more money. The
WNBA draft was last night. Those girls that got drafted in the top 10 are taking a huge pay cut over what they were making on NIL.
Yeah, I mean, Ortega's, he's looking at a late second round pick. He's going to make triple if he comes back to UK.
Yep.
So, I mean, it does help that.
I think it helps because, for one, the kid's going to get their education.
Right.
Well, maybe if they're going to class, who knows? But
now
they're going to have a degree. Let's put it that way.
Especially UK, they've changed. All our players are like 28 years old now.
Yeah.
So that's all that's changed. All right, so I'm going to skip the Masters and circle back around see if we have time because I got a legal question that just come up that I read. So follow this. All right, some thieves who are homeless used a stolen credit card to buy a scratch-off.
Okay.
They stole it. They won $523,000 on this scratch-off. The guy who the card was stolen from and his attorney are saying if they give them half, they're willing to split the money. Police and the prosecutors are working to say that the money was illegally obtained.
Yeah.
Where does this end?
The state gets it all.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that ends up. I love the argument from the attorney there,
right?
And I think that's some great plaintiff's work. But I would reason to bet that the judge says that's a no-go, and we're gonna that money's going back to the lottery fund for somebody else to scratch off.
Yep.
So I walk into your office and I go, man, I'll be honest. I stole this credit card. I won this $500,000. You're basically telling me there's no option here.
I'm going to say, sorry, Kevin. Yeah, we're out of luck. It's going back to the lottery, my friend.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, but you got to get inventive in the legal world. I mean, you got worth a shot.
Especially if there's no case law to reference.
Yeah, I mean,
because there can't be. This doesn't happen too often where you can point to
another case.
Yeah,
so and so versus so and so and go, well, this is how this ended. So you're setting a precedent.
Yeah.
So you can't. There's no argument on keeping that money.
And you better believe the lottery representations will have their legal advisors there saying it's our money.
Yeah.
Does the guy with the card have any legal rights to it? It was bought on
stolen
his card.
Oh, the guy that
It
owns
was
the
bought
card.
with his credit card.
Sounds like the guy with the card should have never said it was stolen. Should have just
Right.
said, "Well, I sent them to buy it, and we'll split it." That's
Right.
that's where he messed up.
I'm with you.
He needed a better attorney to get that straightened out.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I would have went a different route with
Yeah.
this,
Mhm.
and I would end up with at least half.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd been like, look, man, give me the ticket.
Yeah.
I'll go cash it. You take half. You take half.
Yep.
But I guess the store somehow reported this because they had it on camera.
Gotcha.
They knew that
Yeah.
it was stolen. It was a whole mess.
I was surprised you could buy lottery tickets with a credit card
Yeah, I didn't know
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
You can
because
do
you can't
that.
in Kentucky.
Yeah, you can.
Since when?
Absolutely. You can go to Kroger right now on their vending machines, use a credit card and buy.
No kidding.
I've done
you
it.
used to not be able to do that.
It just changed like about a year ago.
Oh.
Okay.
But
That's
yeah,
how I don't play the lottery.
yeah, you can. I get scratch offs on occasion when I go out, so you can absolutely do them. Now, I don't know if like the Powerball and all those,
Right.
but
Yeah,
I know on
I
the
don't think so.
Kentucky,
Well, the credit card
scratch-offs-
companies are loving that. That 29.9%
Yeah,
interest.
Well,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
many credit cards block it,
Yeah.
so they have the option of blocking that. So, Tom's considering running for office one day.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, he is.
Absolutely
But
not.
he has a strong stance on something that I need you.
Okay, I'll weigh in.
He's very upset about this roundup at the register.
Oh, my gosh.
So
I'm not running for nothing, but I do have a strong stance on that.
He is going to come to you at some. He wants this stopped at
Yeah.
all local where you round up for whatever.
Yeah.
So because he's not doing it, not
Yeah.
rounding up one
So
time for anybody.
Here's what I do. If you go to any drive-through, it's $10.19. Would you like to round up for this or this and this? And I always ask them, are you willing to round down? And it kind of stumps them. And they're like, excuse me? No, if you want me to round up, are you willing to round down? You're a multi-billion-dollar corporation, and you're asking me for my change.
Yeah.
So you think Lowe's?
It aggravates the crap out of me.
Yeah, I don't know. I've known him a long time. I've never seen him this upset over take
yeah.
this strong of a stance on anything in my life.
Does that seem like a post-COVID thing to you? Like with the, what irritates me,
Yeah.
the roundup thing hasn't got me, but what irritates me is having where they actually hand you
For everything.
they hand it to you. Mm-hmm. And then you got all the tip buttons and all that, like when you're getting your Starbucks, but you've actually got to like take the thing and run your. That's what I hate. That's
Right.
I'm in the state. If I can figure out a way to ban that.
Well, I hate that you go to a self-serve stuff and they still want a tip.
Have you seen the commercial where the guy's in the gym?
You go to Panera Bread.
Yeah, the guy's in the gym and he asks that guy for a spot, and he goes over and he gives him a spot.
And then he hands him a
Then he
kiosk.
grabs his iPad and turns around and goes, "If you could just take a look right here."
Yeah.
And I'm
seems
like, that's pretty accurate.
I mean, you go to Panera Bread. You have a cash register there, lady or guy. They ring it up. They hand you your cup. You go get your own drink.
Yep.
You go down and get your own food and sit down. Would you like to tip me for that? Tip you
Right.
for what? For what? For handing me my cup?
It's a post. I swear, it's like that kicked in about 5 years
It
ago.
drives
It had
me.
gone back. Yeah.
But I tell you what, I mess them all up when I say, "Will you round down?"
Have you rounded up yet?
I refuse.
Because you have to. Because I know how many times you go to fast food. I know how many times you go to Lowe's, and they're in all those.
Yeah.
Would you like to round up, for whatever?
I ask everybody, "You round down, I'll round up."
That's a good response, I suppose.
I mean, they don't. I'm like, you're a multi-billion-dollar company, and you're asking me for 14 cents.
Well, all right. So, do you ever think about how far you want to take your political office?
yeah.
I mean, I know you don't always know until you get into it and how far you're going to take it, but do you have ambitions of, as attorney general? Is that something?
It's cliche, but I truly mean this. If I really felt like I could continue to make a difference in a different role, then I would run.
Keep
for
moving
it.
up.
Now right now, like I said earlier, what I love about my job is that I love running a law practice too, and I like being in the Army Reserve.
Mm-hmm.
So, that would have to narrow if I ran for something else. You can't practice law and run for Attorney General or run for Congress. But I would, I wouldn't say no. Just like with this seat, I wasn't looking necessarily to run for this seat when it
There
came
was a
up.
need, and you felt like you'd be the best person for the job.
There was a need. Representative Weber was stepping down. There was a special election. I felt like, I'm young, but I've had some pretty, diverse life experience. I've owned a business now for a couple years. I've served in the military. I think I could do this and do it well. If that were the case down the road for something like Attorney General, then I'd take a hard look at it. But I didn't get in the job to jump to the next thing.
Right, but like I listened to my son who's stationed in Germany now, and he knows before he got enlisted, he didn't know anything about politics. Like just what he saw. I see how you guys fall into, because you see a lot of military people in political roles down the road.
Sure.
And I think you see so much of negativity is the first thing that comes to my mind. Word is you think there are better ways to fix this.
Sure.
Because he's 27 now.
Yeah.
And he talks about politics now more than he ever did.
Sure.
And it's just from what he sees, being enlisted.
Yeah.
So I can understand how your path, and I know you have family ties and that kind of, you grew up in that world.
Right.
I can see how that could take you to that.
Yeah. I would definitely. I wouldn't say no, but right now I am fully. I love getting to do both. Truly for me. There's been just a couple things that I wanted to do since high school, and I've always liked politics. I've always wanted to run a business, and always wanted to serve in the military in some capacity. So right now, getting to do all three is pretty cool. I mean, it's tough to beat.
It's tough to balance.
Right.
It is tough to balance, too. It is tough to balance.
Last question. I probably asked you this on the last one because I always ask politicians this. I'm always just, what politician, dead or alive, if you could have dinner with, would you want to? You can't use Daniel Cameron. You know him too well.
I know Daniel Cameron.
Like if you could sit down, even if it's from the past.
Mine would be Ronald Reagan.
See, that's
I was going to say
Reagan or Lincoln.
Reagan or Lincoln. I'll give you kind of a curveball because I just read the book about him. Would be Teddy Roosevelt. I would love to sit down with Teddy Roosevelt. You talk about an interesting guy.
Yeah.
right.
I wouldn't say no if President Trump's listening. Wouldn't say no to dinner with him at Mar-a-Lago.
Well, he
course,
does.
but-
No,
You have to get in between when Kid Rock's there.
we see President Trump on our download list. So
Yeah, well, that's what I figured. I wanted
so
to make sure he heard.
listens, but we just, he's like, "Can I come on?" We're like, "No, we got Peyton coming on."
Yeah,
We can't.
right.
But if he wants to play 18, I can fly
Right.
down there. I'll make the time.
Lincoln's a good one because I've always thought Reagan just because I just thought like this guy was just like, well, whatever he felt so unpolitically attached. He just made decisions based on
Common sense.
Right. Right.
Yep.
And that's when he's always been my favorite politician.
Right.
I was like, it's a common sense decision.
Yeah.
He doesn't
You're
go.
saying Nixon wasn't your favorite?
He doesn't go over and ask, all his people, like, what's the politically right? He's just like, well, this is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So-
No, that's exactly right. I think that would be awesome. And then I just finished the rise of Teddy Roosevelt. I listen to a lot of podcasts and I'll listen to books driving back and forth to Frankfort. And you talk about an interesting cat. Talk about life experience and
See, with Lincoln, it would be the mindset of that whole Civil War era. Like, how does your mind work? I mean, what was the thought process on some of these decisions?
I don't know. I mean, well, it's obviously it's a turning point in America.
Yeah.
So, and I guess at the time, I would always want to go back and be like, did you know that? Did you know right now
it was going to make that big of a difference
you were changing,
in our world?
You were changing the course of
History.
society. Yeah, history.
Well, in one different decision, who's to say we don't have two countries, three countries instead of one united country? Yeah.
Yeah. So I've always found I'd like to go back and talk to people who have been in those roles.
Yeah.
And just
Because I can't imagine they would ever think that decision they made on that certain day would turn out to what it is today.
Right.
You couldn't foresee that. You wouldn't know.
Right.
But because they made the right decision, we have so many more free liberties.
Yeah. Right.
Because of that.
Right.
And the only other political room I'd like to been in is when the whole because there was a movie put on about it when the Kennedys and the Cuban crisis. And those come down to like hours.
I'd like to be in the Watergate hearings.
Yeah.
Those would be interesting to listen to.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be
Or Well, I ain't gonna get into Bill Clinton era.
I'm done. You go. It's yours.
Okay, guys, we'll catch you next week.
Thanks,
See ya.
guys.
Looking for your dream home or thinking about selling? At TC Realty, we make your real estate goals a reality. With over 25 years of experience and expert negotiations, we know how to close deals for you. Whether it's finding the perfect neighborhood, navigating the market, or selling for top dollar, trust the team that delivers results. Call TC Realty today at 502-905-5065 or visit us online at www.tc-realty-ky.com. Your future home is just a call away. TC Realty, a better way to buy and sell.